So in our society, we have a lot of different themes that seem to come up in terms of what's blocking our progress as a civilization, what's sort of in our way of really achieving what we want and being happy and living in peace, and all the kind of cliched ideals that we have in terms of our development and our progress. And as a counselor working with addictions, I feel that this is one of the common themes that comes up in people's lives individually, and then it kind of expands collectively, just in terms of the sense of needing something to make us feel better and to sort of keep us going. To me, that's what an addiction is. It's sort of this, it's like a double-edged sword. You have the one side of the pleasure, the hits of pleasure, the good feelings, and then you have this painful repercussion. And I feel as though most people are acting out in that sort of pain-pleasure cycle in whatever way they are. Like, you have the classic drug addict who is a very visible manifestation of that. You have a person who's, drunk out of his mind in an alleyway, and you can see him maybe singing to himself when he's drunk, and then you see him just passed out and miserable when the effects wear off. And so it's very obvious how this works in our lives. We sort of learn that certain behaviors give us pleasure, and then we maybe do them to excess. And then not having those pleasures will kind of reveal the pain that we don't want to deal with. It'll be like, oh, well, since I'm not drunk, now I feel anxious, which I've been feeling for years, but I haven't actually looked at. So what's a real solution? I mean, I've talked to so many people who feel as though they have some sort of something in their lives that's sort of like a guilty pleasure, something that they kind of want to give up, but they don't know what they'd do without it. Whatever it is. Like, I have a couple friends who are kind of shopaholics, and they're aware of it. It's like, I'd probably be a lot happier if I was free of this. Like, people will say that a lot of the time. Like, I really just want to get over this and be free of having to do certain things, because it feels like I'm not really liking what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like I'm fully enjoying my experience. It feels like I'm seeking just hits. I'm seeking little bits of pleasure here and there in the activities or in other people or whatever, in the case of codependence and stuff like that. And then it's sort of like one part of the brain or one part of the psychology is like, I think they call it the limbic system. It just wants pleasure. So that part of the brain sort of asserts itself. It's like, oh, chocolate. I had a bad day and there's chocolate. So boom. It's like this overriding of our sort of higher wisdom faculty. And all that matters is that hit, just to feel better for a moment. And I feel as though that's a very common thing in our society, because we spend a lot of our day kind of under stress and having to think a lot, having to make quick decisions, having to endure a lot of hardship from other people. We're being bombarded with requests, and we have a lot of obligations to meet, and there's things to do. So our ego self, we're dealing in the world, and we're acting and reacting, and maybe we're afraid of certain consequences, and our body is just in overdrive. We're just sort of living in that state of heightened agitation all the time. And so then it makes sense, right? I mean, what else do you do after a long week at work? I mean, it just makes sense to go to the bar, kick back, and have a few beers, or whatever else, whatever other way that would show up. Like, it could be any other number of things, or just have a shopping trip or something, or go to the casino on the weekend or whatever. And I think what we don't see as a society is that we don't have to endure endless suffering, in our day-to-day life. We don't have to endure endless hardship and strain and stress. We can sort of wake up to our own reality that's sort of behind all of this stuff, you know, that we're aware of ourselves and not have to be caught in these patterns. So like, for instance, I used to go to school and I would be really competitive. I would try to get the best marks and this and that, and I would try to compete with my friends for recognition, and I would just always try to excel more and more, and that was wearing down on my body and my mind as well. And someone pointed out, well, you know what, you're not subject to that. You're aware of that going on. You don't have to be enslaved by those patterns. You can step back and see, oh, well, I don't need to be so stressed out. I can just take a deep breath and just see that these thoughts are just conditioned patterns, and then these emotions are just reactions, and that I'm just aware of that. I'm just being with that and not having to be caught up in that momentum. And because addictions are like a huge momentum, like a spinning top or something, or a washing machine. It's just, you know, even if you stop it, it's still, if you stop the power to it, there's still a momentum that keeps going for a while. So I think the key is just to raise that awareness in our day-to-day lives, so we don't have to rely on these behaviors to just give us momentary relief. We can live in that relief. We can live in that sense of like, oh, everything's okay, everything's, you know, relatively peaceful, because I'm not believing in every thought that's coming into my head, and I'm not giving all my attention out into a mad world that wants all kinds of things that, you know, maybe too much for me right now, or, well, you know, we don't have to play that game to that extent. And so then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, if I'm at peace with myself, I can just come back to that recognition that I'm okay fundamentally. Then all of a sudden I don't need the piece of chocolate just for some pleasure, and all of a sudden my drinking habit starts decreasing, and the casino doesn't seem so enticing, and compulsive sex is no longer at the forefront of my mind, because it's like, well, I'm okay with myself. I'm not stressed out. I'm just breathing. I'm just alive. You know, just doing one thing at a time. And yeah, and then I'm not contributing more to that craziness. Then it's the sense of, oh, okay, well, now I'm maybe available to be of service, because I'm not taking up all my time just seeking pleasure. Because that's sort of the way that we've adapted. We spend the majority of our time kind of being productive and using our minds a lot, basically thinking a lot and doing things for something, for a result, like doing something to get something in return. And because of the strain of that, because that's so difficult, then we look for something that will help us to escape. It's like being Houdini. We're locked into this sort of a tight place, a tight situation, and then we'll do anything to get out of it, you know? Be sort of an escape artist. That's what, like for me, that's what being an addict was all about. Being good at escaping. I can escape situations. I can get out of these feelings. I don't have to deal with them. I don't have to face them because of this, you know, this addiction over here that I can indulge in. So it's really just that awareness, you know. It's about just seeing how our minds operate, seeing how our feelings are stirred up by our thinking, you know, just seeing what's going on inside of us. And it sounds cliche and it sounds kind of touchy-feely therapeutic stuff, but I don't know, I've been working at it in my own recovery, and it does seem to work, you know, as long as I am committed to it in this moment, to really rise above it, to rise above these sort of lower tendencies that we've been carrying for so long. And if I do it, and you do it, then all of a sudden the world starts to look a little bit better, gradually. But at least we'll be happier, and that's all we can do. So thanks a lot, and have a great moment.